Welcome back to the Wild West Tennis Podcast, brought to you by QualityShot Tennis. Today, I'm honored to have a new friend, a former top 50 singles player and top 20 doubles player on the ATP Tour. Lavelle was also the former number one tennis player in his country, Mexico, and a Davis Cup captain. For the last, I think you'll have to remind me, 20 or so years, he's been a leading commentator for ESPN Deportes. Leo, it's a pleasure to see you again. Thank you for coming on today.
Thank you, Brad. It's nice talking to you, and I'm happy to be here.
Well, just so to let everybody know, I got to meet Leo last week in Guadalajara for the WTA 1000, where he was commentating, as I mentioned, for ESPN Deportes. Leo, could we kick things off with the fact that the opening match for Jessica Pegula is a rematch of the final in Guadalajara? I don't know if you've done your homework on that yet.
Well, I believe what you're saying, but yeah, no, I think that it's going to be interesting because I feel like it's so open. You know, anybody can win the finals, and all the pressure is on Iga Swiatek. But I do like the fact that Jessica Pegula is playing unbelievable tennis. I was very surprised how she played last week, and for me, I think Swiatek and Pegula should go all the way and win the title. That's how I feel. You know, but it's pretty open. I mean, the year that Pegula has had with all these wins, for me, it's very surprising the regularity that she's had, and she's only losing to the top players. So for me, she's she's had an unbelievable year, in my opinion. So she should be winning or having the possibility of winning the title of the finals.
I agree. My assessment is not all that different than yours. For me, up until the U.S. Open, I felt Pegula was a player that wouldn't beat herself, was very professional. And now I feel when she walks on the court, she believes she's the better player. That's my assessment outside. Like, I just feel she has the confidence now to believe she's as good as anybody. And why not, right?
Yeah. No. There's no more confidence than winning matches. And I think that she has plenty of matches and plenty of good wins. So she's full of confidence, and that's the hardest part in our sport, to gain that confidence, and she's got it. At the moment, she's in my opinion, she other Iga, of course, she has an unbelievable record winning, all these titles, and obviously she's the favorite, but anything can happen. I mean, it's very open. All the pressure is on Swiatek, and I think Pegula is on a good streak at the moment.
She sure is. And, it's also interesting to note that she and Coco Gauff are in the doubles portion of the event. And, for example, when you won the tournament in 1991 in Tel Aviv, you won the singles title, but you also made the doubles final that week, losing in the final. You can explain how that works, right? When you're on that roll, winning is winning, singles and doubles. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, you feel, especially on on that special week that I had in Tel Aviv, I played the qualifying, and I was coming from playing the qualifying, and I had tough matches, and I have very difficult first round matches, and
Jacob Esselotz, right?
I'm sorry?
I think it was the 8th seed you played, Jacob. I always forget his first name. That was your first round match, I think.
Elting. He was a player.
Yep.
And so all the matches are difficult, and when you get on a roll, like I was, playing the qualies and then going to the main draw and almost losing the first couple of matches, then you start getting on a good way to play, and you start getting that confidence, and it gets, also in the doubles. We started winning doubles with my good friend Javier Frana, which he
Yeah.
also was for many years an ESPN commentator.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. When I did my homework, I thought, oh, that's cool. And he was from Argentina. Is that correct?
Yes, he's an Argentinian. He used to play very well on grass court. He was lefty, and
Mm-hmm. Like yourself.
good results. I think he made finals in Newport. So good results on the
Yeah.
grass courts.
Well,
Yeah.
so yeah, speaking to the thing about confidence, Iga has only lost, I think, one match in the US this year, and she's basically 19-1 against the field there. But I don't think this is an ideal situation. Like Wimbledon was the tournament she didn't win this year. An indoor tournament with a lower bounce might give the field a little bit of a better chance to knock her off. Are you do you buy into that, or do you think her confidence in her superiority as a player will take her
I
through?
Yeah, for sure. I think that it's so hard to maintain what she's maintained. Uh, so you're expecting that she's gonna have a bad week, or she's gonna have a bad loss. So it might happen this week, but I will be very surprised if she wins. Um, that's how I feel. It's been a long year,
Hmm.
and you always expect that she's gonna have a bad week, and she has not had a bad week yet. So, but I'm very superstitious. That's how I feel. And being last week, uh, watching all the, how they train, and how they
Hmm.
feel, and especially the girls are so emotional. So that's how I feel. I follow Pegula all week. I saw her first couple practices. She looked terrible. She was very
Yeah.
moody, and she ends up winning that tournament the first time to win a WTA at 1,000. That blew my mind. I mean, and at the end she says, like, I I learned a lot about myself this week, because she didn't look too good, because the week before she was in San Diego, she lost, I think, in the semis with Swiatek, and she got
Yes.
killed, and she was
Yes.
tired when
Yes.
she arrived in
Yes.
Guadalajara, but she
Yes. She
ends up
did.
winning the tournament.
She didn't look comfortable to me either. That's the way the word I'd use to describe it. I noticed the same thing you did. She didn't look comfortable. She looked a little spotty in her first few matches, and I think what you're saying, she played herself into form. Obviously, it's not ideal for a person to have to play two matches in one day, as her opponent for the final had to finish her semi the afternoon before the final. That's never ideal, right? But it didn't matter. Pagula at that point was going to win. I thought once she got to that final, forget it. It was over.
I feel that Sakari was, I like her attitude. I like how she believes in her game, but um, she was not playing. I mean, she did not play the right strategy, in my opinion, against Pegula on the finals. And
Hmm.
she said that she was very tired after the rain
Hmm.
delay, and going to bed, and she couldn't, had a good night's sleep, and then come back to win the semis, and then play a couple hours later. That was too much for her. But
Yeah.
but yeah, it was interesting week. But I like her attitude, and
Hmm.
I do like her, how she believes in her game.
To be sure, and I think the fans liked her as well. She was a fan favorite, and she gave it her best. She made the best of a tough situation, to be sure. So if we were to move on to the men now, who are played in Paris, we have an interesting situation with two North Americans in particular. Felix has won the last three tournaments he's entered, the last 13 matches in a row. Do you want to talk about him for a moment? What your impressions are of his recent run in
I,
Europe?
I do like him very much, and I think he's so professional. If he's
Hmm.
if I can say a big quality of himself is that he's very mature professionally, how he handles himself in the tournaments, how he practices, how he does his fitness, and how he's very methodical every week, and
Mm.
sooner or later that's going to pay off. I do believe. I expected to do for him to do better, like long time ago, but
Hmm.
finally, in this indoor season, especially, he's doing really well, and I do believe long-term relationship with coaches does help also. His relationship with
Uncle
with
Tony, or is he still with him?
his French coach.
Oh yeah,
What's
I
his
forget the name. I know it's a tough
anyway?
one.
It's his French coach who is
Hmm.
from my same era. I know him very
Okay.
well. Talk to him, but he's so talented and he's very professional. So finally, he's getting in that group that he believes he can win week in, week out. It's really nice to see at the end of the year someone like Felix coming along and having all these results. That's awesome. I like it.
I love watching him play. I haven't seen him play as much as you have, but he, as you recall, he when he came to Los Cabos, he did lose in the semifinals to Cam Norrie, which was a bit of a surprise. But just watching his matches, I like his calm, his
Yes.
demeanor. He's smooth. Does is he different? Is there something about him? Just the technique? Is he just a very natural, easy player? What is it that really impresses you about his game?
Um, I like his physique. I think physically
Yeah.
he's unbelievable strong. He's very fit. Sometimes he's so methodical the way he plays. Sometimes he's very predictable when he's going to be serving,
Hmm.
and he has to mix it up. But I think that he's mature a lot, and I think that again, it's all mental. I do believe all these young kids. They still do not believe they can dethrone the Nadals, the Novaks, and I do believe they do have the game. I do believe like Zverev, he has the game. I do believe Felix, he has the game. I do believe Shapovalov, he has the game.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
so it's all mental. But I think in Felix particular situation, I think the fitness and the professionalism that he brings to his game that's going to pay off sooner or later, and it's starting to pay, and in the belief that he can be at the top. I think that's what's so nice about his results at this time at the end of the year.
It's unbelievable, and it appears to me, Leo, to be a man of all seasons and all surfaces. I don't know what his best surface is, but I don't know if he's weak on any of them. Could you elaborate on his surface abilities? You
I do
know,
believe he's a fast court player. Like I said
okay.
before, sometimes he's very predictable how he plays. His coach's name is Frederick Fontang. It's
That's yeah,
in my head. So I think I do believe that he developed a very fast court game, and he's going to be more effective on a fast court, like an indoor fast court and a hard court.
then
But
how do you explain him getting to the semifinals of Roland Garros? I think
yeah,
2 years ago. It's kind of like, wow, that's cool.
and again, I do believe like in Canada, I don't know if you know Canada, but
I
they
do.
do have unbelievable tennis centers, and they brought
Yes,
the people
yes,
from French Open to build those courts. So they do have
yes,
those courts there to practice. So I do believe he can play in any surface. He's got the
yes.
results, but I do believe he's more of a fast court, hard court kind of player.
Do you think? I'm so glad you brought that up, Leo. How the Canadian Tennis Association was wise enough to look to outside countries for help in their player development. I was there in 2012 where they had some hard true green courts, green clay courts put in, and they had Djokovic and Nadal do a little demo. I think it was 12, and I believe it was in Montreal. But you're saying that they went further. Is that something Mexico, with their resources, with having these pro events here? Imagine if Mexico did something like that and brought
Oof,
in, you know,
that would be like unbelievable, like a dream. I do believe like
right?
Canada is a perfect example of a country that they copied or they tried to build something similar like what they were doing in France, for example. They brought in, I think, Louis Cayer. Louis Cayer was the director of the French development.
Hmm.
He was very, very important French coach, and they brought him to Canada. And the first thing he did is he took all the ex Canadian players to be involved in the development of Tennis Canada. I do believe that the key was that they got all the resources to do it. They have an unbelievable 2 or 3 tennis centers all around the country, which are unbelievable. They have clay courts, they have good coaches, they have the resources. And I don't think Mexico will ever have all those resources that you're mentioning.
Well, perhaps the model might be for Mexico to, enlist the help of Spain. So they have the big event in Barcelona and Madrid, and with the language, obviously the Canadian in Montreal, the French connection, if you will. Maybe some people from Spain that have had success could come to Mexico. Maybe not. You know more about that than I do, but it's something for any country to pay attention to. If Canada can do it, Mexico can too. So we hope.
I remember
But
when Mexico was beating Canada
uh
15, 20 years in Davis Cup. We were beating them constantly. So that's a good example, like you say, that if
yeah,
Canada can do it, why not Mexico?
yeah,
We can do it.
yeah, and it's North America. You have the resources, you have the climate, to be sure. I mean, you have a much better climate than Canada, and more pro events on the ITF level. As we talked about last week. Um, but moving on to the American Taylor Fritz, who has had an interesting year, in my opinion. He has a chance to qualify for the final spot. It looks like Felix is going to probably get in. He'd have to really have terrible luck. And it's going to probably come down between Rublev and Fritz. So, could you speak about Taylor Fritz as a player and then maybe about his season? But just first, as a player, your thoughts on Taylor Fritz.
I think he's also a unbelievable talent that he has
Mhm.
developed. I know him well because he grew up in San Diego, uh,
Yes.
and his father is pretty involved in coaching and
His mother, Kathy May, was married to Brian Teacher back in the late 70s, early 80s. Great tennis pedigree.
so he comes for an unbelievable background. So I kind of know his how he
Hmm.
grew up playing junior tennis. I saw him play junior tennis, and I think that he has developed in an unbelievable player. I think that his key also was to really train hard on the physical aspect. I think that he
Yes.
grew very much on the physical aspect, and that showed on his game. And but he still has a long way to go to fill in on on those unbelievable players like Pete Sampras or like an Andre Agassi, which I believe they have to. I think the next big goal for him will be to win a Grand Slam, or to be close of competing, or being close to winning something big. He already won Indian Wells, which was unbelievable.
Hmm.
Um, but he has to go one more step, and then I think everything will be kicking in. I don't know. I don't know about his injuries, if it's an issue. But if he can compete day in day out, he has the talent to do it. I do believe he's an unbelievable talent, and right now he's, for me, the most important U.S. talent at the moment.
Yeah, and he's not. I mean, he's only in his 20s. It seems like we've been talking about him for a long time. It feels like he's been around for a while. He's about your height, right? About 6'2" to 6'4".
Yeah.
Kind of, he's maybe he gets a little bit bigger, maybe he doesn't. So if the talent is there, and I like his attitude, I think I like that he gets pissed off when he loses. He doesn't seem satisfied to me with where he's at yet. Do you know more about his psyche and explain that his nature as a competitor?
No, I do like him also, the way he competes, and that he's not, he has not settled of what he has achieved. I do believe right now, it's again, Taylor Fritz, you name it. Any young guy at the moment is the belief in his mind to be able to compete and to win for the top players. I think that's the biggest hurdle. I still believe that they're not very. I don't know how to say it, but they have to be more convinced that they can jump into that level. That's how I
I
feel.
think I think an example I might use would be Pete Sampras when he won the U.S. Open, as we all recall, in 1990, beating McEnroe or Lendl McEnroe and then Agassi, and then he lost the final to Edberg in '92, I believe, and he realized he was just happy to get to the final, and when he realized getting to a major final wasn't good enough, he was disgusted with himself. Then he became Peter T. Sampras, and I think that's the quality that these guys have to have, right? That
Yes.
they just cannot. It's not good enough to get to a final. That's not going to work. You can make a good living, but
I, I,
you're not going to be a
yeah. Well,
champion.
I don't know if you know this story, Brad, but because I was there, when Pete Sampras was in the juniors, he had the same agent as Ivan Lendl. So his agent
Oh,
invited him to practice with Ivan Lendl one summer, and I do believe that was an unbelievable opportunity for him to see
oh,
that he had the talent and he had the game to be number one in the world. And especially, I do believe those sessions were unbelievable for him in the mental side to believe that he can be number one in the world. So I think that was huge for him when he was able to practice uh, periodically with Ivan Lendl. So that was very.
I I think you're right. Wasn't that when Lendo had the same tennis courts put in his home in Connecticut, the same surface that they used at the U.S. Open? So maybe they practiced at Ivan's house.
Right.
Um, I
And I
that
think
brings
Ivan, the first time that Pete arrived, he had to go through the
me.
to the
Yeah.
backyard. He was not. He
Mhm.
was not. He eventually he was invited to go to
Yeah.
the house, but that
Yeah,
that
and
was
Lendl had those.
it's a good story.
Yeah, Lendl had those like Doberman pinchers, and it was kind of an intimidating situation for the young Peter T. Sampras. But you're right. Um, to have that role model, a guy like Lendl who became an American citizen, and such a dominant champion, rubbed off on Pete. And I think that it's interesting. These guys, everyone talks about, Roger, Rafa, Novak, tough, Um, and there's still two out of the three are hanging around. Normally, we just talk about American players here, but I'm going to ask you to look ahead. Let's assume that Novak's able to play a full schedule next year, okay, Leo? He can play everywhere. And Rafa's physically, all right. Uh, who's going to take three sets off of Rafa in Paris, and who's going to be able to beat Novak in Australia and Wimbledon? I'm saying too much, but let's say those two dudes are alive and well. I mean, do you think that they're going to not come up with majors next year, Rafa and Novak?
I think that Novak will, because he's so fresh. He didn't play that much this year, and
Hmm.
he showed that he's committed and that he's hungry enough and healthy enough to do some damage next year. And
Okay.
with Rafa, it's a big question because you seem it seems like he was not healthy enough at the end, but I'm surprised that he's playing this week and that he's gonna give it a go. So
Yeah.
it just keeps he keeps surprising us with all these results, and it's to be seen. But it's gonna be a physical situation for Rafa in the injury side if he's able to overcome it again and again that he's done it. But I think he's in his last tournament, in my opinion. I don't know if he's gonna last next year, but that's how I feel because physically he's not on the right track. Contrary of Novak, I think Novak, he's fresh, he's healthy, and he's hungry. All of the above with Rafa, but on the injury on the injury side, I don't know if he will be okay to play.
Leo, let me ask you, since I see it exactly the way you do. Did it surprise you that, given the fact that Rafa, became a father for the first time not long ago and has never won the ATP Era Championships, has only won 2 indoor titles, is making such a commitment playing this week in Paris and to go on to compete for the year-end number 1 ranking? Did that surprise you, given what's going on in his personal life?
Yes,
Just
it does surprise me, but it just tells you how much he's appreciating his every moment that he has, and obviously he has a good moment at the he has a good situation right now, so he wants to take the chance to play, and I am sure all his team around him is protecting him not to get injured. So one sign that something bad can happen, he's gonna be out. But like you say, it's some of the tournaments that he has not been able to finish in his career. So he's trying to try to win them. So that's gonna be huge. If he's able to win this next couple weeks, that will be
yeah.
unbelievable, and that he will, everybody will go crazy if he's able to do it.
Leo, it's like 2010 never ended. You got these two dudes that have done more than anyone, and they still want it more than anyone. That's not fair, really, because everyone wants it. But it's so cool that Novak and Rafa are as hungry as these young dudes, if not hungrier. We can't measure their appetite, but come on, it's awesome, right?
Yes, it's amazing, and the hardest. Well, I played professional tennis for 10, 12 years, and at the end of my career, I was exhausted mentally, physically. Obviously, it was in our era in the
Mm-hmm.
80s, in the 90s, but
Mm-hmm.
for me, that's the hardest part in tennis, and it
Mm-hmm.
just tells you, and we see it in Serena that
Mm-hmm.
how much it's just a way of life. That's her way of life, and
Mm-hmm.
it's so hard for her to change it.
Mm-hmm.
And she
Mm-hmm.
enjoys it so much that's why she's trying to play more as much as possible. And I don't know if physically that's going to be possible, but it's a way of life, and that's how they've been able to do it, and that's very, very difficult and overwhelming for everyone in the tennis world to be able
Well,
to play at that level all the time.
Well, Leo, you should know you were you won Junior Wimbledon in 1985, and your career, as you mentioned, stretched. I guess if you count your whole career, juniors and everything, it's close to 20 years. For men like yourselves, and now that how long after your retirement from the pro game did you get into commentating? I'm curious. Was it
Uh,
immediate?
like I think right away I was doing some Olympics. I did the 2000 Olympics, and in
Okay.
Sydney I did. Um, I started on and off, but not full time. I've been going from zero to middle, but yeah, I did some on
Mm-hmm.
and off in the last 20 years, and And with ESPN, I've been doing in the last 12, 13 years with ESPN.
Beautiful. So your life really hasn't changed that much in the sense of, as a tennis player, you're you're part of the you're one of the clowns of the traveling circus. But I mean that in a good way. I mean, like you guys, that's all you know, traveling your whole life around the tennis with the tennis, and it's so cool. I love meeting people like yourselves that uh, you love it. I mean, you don't have to. You could leave it. You could do whatever you want. You've had your academies. You've coached on the pro level. But I could tell when I met you last week that you're a fan of tennis. You're a tennis fan, right?
Yeah, I love it. I love tennis, and I do enjoy the struggle because I've saw the game grow. And I gave you that example with Ivan Lendl and Sampras,
Yeah.
because back in the days when Lendl was training
Hmm.
and he was going to the gym, it was like top secret. Not like nobody will be doing that. All the training was done on the tennis court, and very few
Yeah.
people doing the gym. So
You might run a little bit. Yeah.
I've seen all this transition all my life. And I do appreciate everything that how the game has evolved, and it's unbelievable. I love it. I enjoy it to watch.
Yeah. Well, Leo, last question is, do you, with the ESPN Deportes, do you know your schedule, a year in advance, or is it kind of month to month? How does it work for a commentator?
I'm doing all the Grand Slams next year, I think,
Oh, great.
and I will continue to do all the. I did Miami. I did a few in Indian Wells, Miami, and a few tournaments in Mexico, like Acapulco and Cabo San Lucas. But yeah, that's probably I'm going to be doing like 12 events next year.
That's a nice scan. That's a beautiful calendar. It's a bit spread out, right? And it allows you to have a normal home life too, right?
I think that it helped a little bit the COVID situation, because we were able to do many events from home the
Oh
last
yeah.
couple of years. But hopefully we'll get back on track, going to the tournaments, and because it's always nice to be there and to see it live, and to see all the action, what's happening in the backstage of
Yeah.
tournament. I think that's where you have the most information and the most appreciation of what everything's going on. I do like going to the tournaments.
Well, yeah, Leo, I want to be very clear. I had met Leo at the tail end of Acapulco. He gave me a lot of time. He's generous. He's tall. He's handsome. He's strong. And you're a good dude, man. And by the way, how'd it go at the golf tournament in Mazatlan with your son?
It was terrible. We had a rough week, but you know what? You always grow from bad weeks. But Mazatlan was beautiful. I mean, I love Mazatlan. It was unbelievable. But the golf was not so good. But you always learn from the bad days, right?
Sí, señor. Sí, señor.
Thank you
All
for
right.
asking, though. Thank you for asking.
Yeah, Leo, you're welcome. And thank you for your time. I know I said I keep it to 20 minutes, and we're almost at 40. I'm going to let you go, buddy. I'll see you in Acapulco, okay?
Yes, for sure.
All right.
We'll catch up and we'll change some information.
I hope so. All right, ladies, gentlemen, caballeros y damas, gracias. Oh, sorry. Thank you for tuning in for another edition of the Wild West Tennis Podcast, brought to you by QualityShot Tennis. Remember to subscribe, like, tune in, follow us on wherever you get your podcast. And again, Leo, muchas gracias, muchachito.
Gracias, Brad. Un abrazo. Fuerte abrazo.
Igualmente. Okay, ciao.
Take care.